everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Flipping the Barrel, a podcast where we interview leaders in the energy space to uncover and find out more about their career and life journeys. We are again in person today at the Digital Wildcatters studio. Shout out to DW. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast and letting us use your amazing studio here in Houston, Texas. And today we have an incredible leader. Absolutely love her, Souzi Weiland. And Souzi, when I first met you, I was literally astonished knowing your background. From being born in Egypt, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. First person I know from Egypt. She immigrated to the U.S. as a child, and from there she had to navigate a new language. Your father had to give up his career when he moved to the U.S., which is, I think, very interesting and something that a lot of people really understand, and we're going to jump into it when we talk about your story. You had to welcome in a new culture, and it was just really challenging. And you pursued education at its highest level, succeeding. And now you're a powerhouse in HR and energy, landing in Spring, Texas when you arrived here. Just so excited to jump into your story, and I think our listeners are really going to love it, Souzi. So thank you so much for joining us.
Wow.
What an intro.
I know. I am like, I need to pause a moment and relish and all of that for gratitude. So thank you for the kind words. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to hear another super awesome immigrant story, because every time we do get to feature those are the ones that I get inspired by, because it wasn't easy. And I want to kind of dig into a little bit of when you first arrived and that pressure that a lot of immigrants have when you get to a new country. Your parents did so much sacrificing to get you here. And that could be awesome, but that's also a burden, because your expectations for who you're going to be are really high when it comes to your parents. And so can you tell us a little bit about just when you first moved here, the expectations on being the best in school and having an education, learning English, and you felt like you had to be really good at learning English so that your parents and your siblings would follow along. Tell me a little bit about just, it made you who you are, obviously, but I'm sure there's a lot of that stress is still it burdens you at the same time.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about this. Now, in the midst of growing up, you don't know that it's pressure. You just go with the flow, and you have to do what you have to do, and you adapt. But I have, as I've gotten some incredible coaches and mentors in my career, I have reflected often. I've wondered, is it nurture versus nature, or which one is it, right? Was I already susceptible to that? It was innate in me to adjust and kind of be resilient, or did I have to because of the situation? But it is, you feel that pressure, and it's also such a gift. It's a gift, and it is also such a burden. And there's always, anything good can sometimes be bad as well. So there's a double-edged sword to it as well. But my parents sacrificed everything. And when you know that, even as a child, I didn't comprehend the gravity of that, but they're sacrificing just in the lack of sleep that they're getting, in understanding that there's not enough food in the refrigerator, right? And that, my dad had to take blue collar jobs, one at McDonald's. He would get free food during his breaks. He would not eat it. He would bring it home.
And he was an engineer in Egypt, right?
Mechanical engineer, worked on the railroad, very highly regarded, gave up everything. When he moved here 9 months before my brother and my mom and I moved. And it was to kind of get set up. I don't think that anyone really understood that really it's very difficult to get a degree transferred in the U.S. And it costs money to go to college here. And in Egypt, that did not cost money. It was dependent on your grades and your capabilities. And so I think that probably came as a shock to him. And when you have a wife and kids back home and you're trying to get them here, that money either goes to that or it goes to your education. And so to him, that wasn't a choice, right? So we were separated for 9 months before we made the trek over here. I actually vividly remember leaving Egypt, not understanding that it was forever. I remember giving away my tricycle to my cousin, and I was very upset with that. And Mom was like, oh, well, they're just holding it for us, and never saw that tricycle again. Right? but I understand now the extreme emotion from my aunts and uncle and my mom, because you didn't know when you would see each other again. So we moved here. I remember having, we didn't have much money. We lived in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment with 2 mattresses, and that was life. My dad worked 2 jobs. He worked graveyard shifts, and so he got very little sleep. My mom started off, because her English wasn't great. My dad spoke English very fluently because of his career, but she babysat kids in the apartment complex, and that's how she made money. But they moved here and they sacrificed everything so that my brother and I could succeed. So failure wasn't an option. Like, I was very aware of that. That wasn't an option. Like, if we didn't succeed, what would this have all been for, right? So that does create pressure. But I've seen both of your posts, right? Like, we talk about how that's how we make diamonds, right? Out of coal. And so it made me very self-sufficient, very independent. And I'm extremely grateful. There is absolutely nothing that I could do that would repay my parents for that sacrifice.
And I remember when we spoke, like, you were speaking Arabic at the time, and when you were enrolled in school, the teachers usually know Spanish, not Arabic. So not only were you challenged with not knowing the language, but also those teaching you the language didn't know your native language. You know, having to overcome that, and then coming out of that, you were top of the class, very well rounded. You knew everything. Like, I think you were top 5% or so, got into every university that you wanted to. But you were first time generation college student. Like, how would you even know what is a good college, where to go? And a lot of people struggle with that. So tell us a little bit about overcoming that language barrier. And then how did that set you up for the future of when it came to that next challenge, which was where am I going to go to school? Since obviously my parents don't really know much about it. They never were in the US. You know, what's your advice there?
I remember my ESL class in elementary school, and I was the only one who did not understand anything that anybody was saying. The teacher spoke English and Spanish, and the other students spoke Spanish. And so I do remember feeling very uncomfortable. Like, you're just walking around in a body and you can't communicate, but you learn, you just pick up, and that shows the resilience of children, right? And their capabilities. But I even remember episodes of kids talking to me, making fun. I knew they were making fun of me. Because I looked different. I went to a school that was a lot of white students, a lot of Hispanic and African American students, but then there wasn't people that looked exactly like me. Like, if you didn't know better, I could probably pass for Hispanic or Indian, but they knew I didn't look like everyone else. And so that comes with its own challenges. But I guess it was a blessing that I didn't know what they were saying about me. I didn't speak the language. But I remember being picked on, and I remember how uncomfortable that feeling was, right? And you overcome, right? You find people who are kind. I always tell my kids to look for the helpers and the kind people, and you gravitate towards them. Like, I knew that. And so I did. I found the people that could support me, and I excelled in school. I'll tell you one story. I remember early on, maybe it was first or second grade, doing really well. I had learned English very quickly, and like, that helped my mom learn English a lot better. It helped my brother just pick it up. He was 2.5 when we moved to the States. So still young enough to just, learn through. And so it was great. But I did really well in school, and there was some kind of award. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I don't know if it was it was a grade thing recognizing students, and my parents were blue collar, right? So for them to be there meant a lot, because they wouldn't have money, right? Like, they're getting unpaid, right? And I remember when my name was called, like, walking across the stage, and I still vividly remember the pride across their faces. And I will tell you, in that moment, I thought, I want them to feel that as much as possible. And so that's something that drives you as well.
They must be so proud of you today.
They are.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed. So anyway, I didn't mean to tell that, but that popped in my head, and
I love it.
So fast forwarding to college, both of my parents graduated college. They thought they were always, education was so important. I remember my dad was a math genius. He was like a human calculator. And when I started getting the higher level math and I was struggling, he would come home from his day job and he would say, just give me like an hour. And he would wake up and he'd read all the material and then he'd stay up and he would teach it to me. Wow. And he's like, do you understand? And then we would go through it again. And he's like, no. And he was just such an incredible, like, I was just so in awe of his brilliance. And then he would get dressed in like 1 hour of sleep. And that's just what he had to do. Right. And so education was always, always important. And in Egypt, like I said, the college system it's based off of grades. So my dad was the top of his class. He did really well. That's why he was able to go to, engineering school. And so they didn't know how to navigate the United States system. And they just encouraged me to like, what do you need? Right? What do you need from us? And I'm like, I'll figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. And so that independence early on, I think just really fueled me and helped me throughout my journey. Because I basically befriended the school counselor. I'm like, what do I got to do? Like, just tell me, what are the steps? So I learned about, here's this. Yeah. You're top 6%. So you're going to be accepted into every, public school in Texas. And I'm like, it costs money to apply to college. I was just blown away. Right. Yeah. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I don't want to ask my parents for, like, we got to pay for college and apply there and pay. And so she was like, well, here's an application. You can apply here and it'll send it to it's one fee. And so I was churning out. I was like, can you look at my essays? Can you read it? I was just I just remember feeling like this is a full-time job for me.
What did you end up picking? What did you study and where?
So what I ended up picking was business. I wanted just a general business degree initially, and I knew I wanted to do something in math. So I had picked finance. So I applied to all the Texas state schools. I applied to Baylor. I applied to every single scholarship that I was eligible for, because I knew my parents were going to figure it out. That's just the amazing thing about them. But I wanted to lessen that burden as much as I could. And it was a hard decision. For some reason, I wanted to get into Baylor and I wanted to go to Baylor. I have no idea why. I never visited. I don't know. Somebody was talking about it. I don't know. Yeah. Never stepped foot on. Still to this day, have never stepped foot on the Baylor campus. But that's what I wanted. Like it was just. And when I have a goal like that, I am like focused. And so I got into Baylor. Got a $30,000 scholarship, and have you seen the cost of Baylor? Like that's not. That's not much.
I didn't know there was like 2 weeks.
Yeah. And so. My dad, I mean, he was just so full of wisdom, and he said, look, we want to support you, whatever you want to do. And if you want to do that, here's the only thing we can afford to help. He goes, which means you're going to come out of school with this much. He had done all the finances, right? And he's like, this is how much you're going to have to get in student loan debts. He said, and Baylor is known as a medical school. He's like, honey, you're graduating with a business degree. Like you are not going to make enough money to cover these costs very quickly, right? He said, or you can go to U of H. And he goes, and I don't care what it will take. I guarantee you, we will get you out of that school debt free.
Wow.
And I was like, well, you're forcing my hand. It's a choice. It's up to you. And I did. I chose U of H begrudgingly, but I knew it was the right decision, even though I was like, sometimes you just want to make a choice and you don't want to think like adult. You know? And I think I always felt like I was an adult. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like
it always had to make sense.
It had to make sense. It had to be logical. And so I got into U of H. I negotiated that I would live on campus so that I would get some of that full college experience. And it ended up being just an incredible experience. Go Cougs. I loved every minute of it. I remember too, the school counselor my freshman year, as I was trying to register for classes, I had registered for like 18 hours, and she was like, "You're a freshman. We would highly advise against that.
Mhm.
I would do maybe 12." And I looked at her, and I was like, if I take 12 classes a semester, I was like, I'm not going to get out of here in 4.5 years. Like, my parents have enough money for 4 years. Okay. Like, I have to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do I got to do? Like, do I need to talk to the dean? Like, who do I need to talk to get, like, because I needed her stamp of approval. And she was like, look, I'm going to let you try it, but I want to be on record stating that this is not a smart idea. I said, sure, that's fine. Well, I finished that semester with a 3.9.
Wow.
And I went to her and I'm like, are we going to go through this again? And I just put my 18 hours in front of her. She's like, no, you're good. And it was no longer a discussion.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit. So you graduated with a business degree?
I graduated from U of H, Bauer College of Business, with a double major in accounting and finance.
Wow. And okay, now I'm like, how did you get into HR? But I think let's go a little slower. So I believe you went into kind of like the airline industry, to Continental Airlines.
So I actually did that job while I was at U of H.
Oh, cool.
My high school had like a vocational program that Continental trained us to be like the people that you call to book, this is before the heavy internet days.
Yeah.
God, that aged me. But people actually called the phone to reservations.
The training.
And so I went through that program. I actually interned with them after I graduated high school, right before I started college, and they offered me a part-time position. And so I went to classes during the day, and then I had a shift in the evenings. It was like a 4-hour shift. And it was a great job. It was well paying. I loved the fact that I could make money to ease. Like, it was enough that my parents were paying for college. I didn't want to also ask them for additional funds, right? Yeah. So it was wonderful until it wasn't. Until it was very short-lived.
Yeah.
2001 is when I was working there. September 11th happened, and I was laid off. And so that was eye-opening at 18 years old. To be laid off, it was such an interesting experience going through that. Like, I was never, it didn't bother me. I knew I was very logical again. Like, I'm a student.
Yeah.
This isn't my career.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It could have been. I could have gone into other areas, but this isn't my career. I don't have anybody to support. I'm going to be fine. But to witness my coworkers.
Yeah. That really lingered even till today. We're in such a cyclical industry that I'm sure it still affects you when
That's right.
you see other people going through it in the industry, when probably, you are HR. So like you guys are involved in quite a bit of that. I'm sure that still lingers on how people felt and how to do it the right way.
Absolutely. I'll tell you my specific scenario. The lady who was, it wasn't even somebody that I knew that laid me off, which, looking back, I know now that was not best practice. But she cried the entire time she was laying me off.
Oh my gosh.
To the point where I patted her on her shoulder and I said, "It's okay. I'm going to be okay." And that moment has lived with me, not because I was mad at her, right? That I had no ill feelings there, but now that I'm in HR, that moment, I thought, I still think back to that, and I train employees, like, this moment isn't about your feelings. It's about theirs. And so you have to realize that whatever you're feeling, they're feeling it much worse because they're impacted. You can feel horrible about it, but that shouldn't break through to the person in front of you, right?
You need to be uplifting a little
bit. Empathetic. We can be all of those things, but to have to, I remember feeling like, why am I consoling you?
Yeah.
Like, I'm walking out of here without a job, but I'm here consoling you.
Yeah, that's
and I thought something's wrong there. I didn't know what it was, but I left there thinking like that was not right.
Yeah.
And so I have carried that. It's impacted how I've impacted other people.
Wow. And so tell us, when you actually continued on with your career,
you were in finance roles, and then I remember you had this like eureka moment opportunity that happened out in the middle of nowhere, which a lot of things do, right? And this is what really changed your entire career path. So tell us.
So at my junior year, the summer after my junior year, before my senior year in college, I interned with Entergy Coke, and it was a joint venture in their financial reporting department. That summer, they actually announced they were dissolving the joint venture, so they couldn't extend any intern offers, or because they didn't know what the state of the business was. So I kept in touch with a lot of people, and I was able to hire on. They hired me after college in derivatives, supporting kind of their really every commodity that they were trading, supporting traders, risk control, and so forth in their back office. Very analytical work. Like, I loved every minute of it. It taught me a lot. So I think I was kind of like, we do this in business. Like, when I go recruit for universities, I'm going to bring someone who's been through the experience so that they can, tell others. Yeah. So they asked me to join a U of H talk that they were doing. Their head of trading or somebody like that was going to be talking to some group in the business school at U of H. And so they were like, hey, can you come just hang out? Like, let people ask you questions. I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, Houston traffic had other ideas, and the speaker could not get there on time. And so the recruiter was just looked at me after she realized, like, this is not, like, we have to move forward. We have to keep going. And she said, I hate to put you on the spot. And you can say no, because this is highly uncomfortable. But would you mind saying a few words? And I said, blindly, yes, sure. And that was an area of a lot of people. I never thought, I never understood why people struggled, like when they had to speak about their own experience or something in front of a crowd, because that just came easily to me. And so I didn't even pause to, probably should have, but I didn't. And so I just went up there, and I didn't know what I was going to say. I was like, well, I'm just going to wing it and talk about my experience. And so kind of in the middle of my talk, the head of trading or whoever that leader was came, and he kind of took over from there and finished up. And so afterwards, at these events, you wait for students to come. They always congregate in front of HR, in front of leadership. And it was interesting because there was a huge line of students waiting to talk to me. So after that, I was like, I loved every minute of it. And I was like, this is a world, like, I want to be involved in. I don't know in what capacity, but I want to be involved in that. So the next week at the office, my leader came to me, and she was like, hey, you're kind of like the talk of HR right now and trading. And she said they really want you to kind of be part of the university relations program as kind of a business lead. She was like, this is just like extra. You still have to do your work. And I'm like, yeah, I would love to do that. And so, that's what I did. I helped with the recruiting on the business side.
Awesome. Wow. So that's kind of like a path into moving into that HR/people.
It opened up that thought.
That was a possibility.
That was a possibility.
That's so cool. Yeah. There was a point where I believe maybe you were maybe dealing with something at work, and you were dismissed a little bit on maybe what you were bringing up to management or to HR. And we always hear like HR is not your friend type of thing, like they protect the company. And I love when there's people like yourself that are real people persons that like actually want to help both, and not just be like, we just dismiss people. But supposedly it was like, maybe, can you share a little bit about like maybe that incident or that experience where you were like, you know what, this isn't cool, so I'm going to come and be better in HR and be one of those people that can maybe, change the way it's always been done, where there is no trust with HR for some people,
So my story about how I got into HR or the path that opened up that aperture for me was born out of pain. And it was a role that I just had a horrible leader. And look, I didn't do everything perfect either. And I had to really learn how to self-reflect in that moment and do better, and improve. But he did not, we were complete opposites. I was extroverted. He was an extreme introvert. I asked a lot of questions. He hated answering questions. He felt like I was questioning him. And so I always felt in that year, I spent a year under him. And that year I felt demoralized. I felt like I could never be myself. I had to stifle every bit of who I was. So at this company, I knew somebody in recruiting. That's how I got there. And quite a few people noticed like I wasn't myself. I wasn't
your light wasn't shining
socializing. I was coming in, I was doing what I had to do, and I would just leave. And so she asked me to come visit her. And, you know, when you spend most of your energy in a day stifling your true self,
it's exhausting.
It is utterly exhausting, and it is very emotional. And so I had a lot of just pent up emotions. And so she starts asking me, and I'm trying to avoid all of these difficult questions. And then it just I couldn't control it anymore. And I started crying, which I was so mad at myself.
Oh my God.
So mad at myself.
Yes.
And she was like, hold on, I'm going to get somebody, you know, that deals with this.
Whatever just happened here.
So she went and got somebody kind of on the HR business partner, HR director side. And I remember I was sitting in a chair like this, and she sat down here. And I composed myself by the time she got there and so forth. And so the recruiter is telling her these stories, and she, again, seared into my brain moment where I had my hands on the armrests of the chair, and she patted me. And I was like, oh, this is weird. This is very patronizing.
Yeah. This is odd.
And she said, could you maybe be sensitive? And I stood up and I said, maybe you're right.
Like, I'm the problem.
Yeah. I said, maybe you're right. I should work on that. I said, please, let's forget I even came in here.
Yeah.
If you share it with people, I will deny it. Let's just go back to business as normal. And I walked out. And I went home, and I was the most livid that I had ever been. Just feeling like, how is it? I already had felt just very dumbfounded by the fact that there was an adult leader who just treated people like he had tantrums and just treated people like crap. And I didn't understand. I'm like, is this how people really go to work every day?
Yeah.
That they get up feeling miserable, go to a place because they need money. Like, I had a mortgage at that time, so I did need money. And so I just thought, my God, is this like, it made the experiences of my parents, right? Working blue collar jobs, make ends meet. I just realized, like, my God, they had it worse than this. And then the people that should help with that situation made you feel like you didn't know what you were doing, and you were the problem.
Yeah.
And so I did decide in that moment, I thought, this is unacceptable. No one should ever have to endure any of this, and I'm going to fix it. And so I pursued,
going straight to HR.
I registered. I went to U of H for my master's degree. My master's degree is in HR development with a focus on leadership development.
I love that. I love that you went to solve the problem. And since you had all these experiences, what do you tell employees now that, you know, or I'm sure like this doesn't go away. People always have bad managers. People always feel like they're getting talked down to. I mean, those are problems that are always evolving and showing up. What's your advice to those that are going through that?
Every situation is very nuanced and complex, right? And so what I would always try to be is an empathetic sounding board. And I had to be that for myself in those moments. And that's why I had to look inward, right? And realize I can't control whatever is happening with these people, but I can control me. And so what do I have to do differently? And I prayed, and I did make myself better. I checked myself. I was also a know-it-all back then. And I realized, oh, your facial expressions really tell an inappropriate story. So maybe button that up a little bit. But it was things like, my parents also struggled with my facial expressions, and all of that came flooding back. Oh, maybe I am part of this problem. So I tell people that we experience the world from whatever vantage point that we're at, and we really have to open up our perspective. And so I try to be that person where I listen and look, every person's experience is real to them. And there's also multiple points to the story. Now, if there is a situation where a leader is being that way with someone, I do look into it. I run a lot of investigations in the line of work that I do. And I also look at patterns, right? Whether it's exit interviews and so forth, because I want every employee to feel that they do have a say, right? And I also work really hard to make sure that our leaders understand their role in day to day. And so that's
and
why
how much impact they have on everybody.
Absolutely. On the people, on the business, on the culture. I tell leaders every day that every conversation that you have with an employee, it adds or depletes from the culture.
Yeah. Oh, I
that's
love
the
that.
burden.
Yeah.
That is
You either they leave
wear.
happy with the conversation or they leave on unhappy, and then I mean, I think we've had so many conversations on just leadership and culture, and I feel like it's so important, yet it's still in so many companies kind of like overseen. And it's like, if you take care of your people, they will take care of your business, your customers, your everything. And it's sometimes just so overlooked on those interactions, to your point, like you're either adding or removing. And it's crazy how important culture is. But you know, we've got people like you who are there to help continue that. I do believe culture starts from the top. And we had Soma, the CEO of Champion X, and he said leaders get the culture they deserve. And we just loved that because it is coming from the top. That's usually how it is. And so setting that tone from how you're treating everybody at the top, it just trickles down, you know.
Another thing that I say regarding that too is what you permit, you promote.
Gosh, I love that.
Oh, I love that. When you see those toxic managers get promoted and you're just like,
and so, like, when you have a relationship with a colleague and they are brilliant, right? I call them kind of brilliant assholes. Oftentimes I haven't really seen in my career someone who is intentionally trying to be that. Yeah. It is just, they're trying to drive results and like there are other priorities and they might not even be self-aware to understand the impact that they have on those around them, right? That's why emotional intelligence is highly important.
Yes.
Which reminds me, I just had this image keep popping in my head. I don't know if y'all have seen it on Instagram, but it's this lady and she's in the meeting and she's pumping and all the guys are just staring at her and they're like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, Dave, I told you I needed a pump, but you wouldn't move the meeting. So here I am now. And she goes into like her like talk, but it's like that simple thing right there. Like just realizing that although it might be very important to have this meeting right now, like there are other things going on in people's lives that you need to take into consideration when you do set the tone for your meetings or for your time frame of these meetings. Which brings me to something that I thought was really incredible about your husband, who sat you down when you were doing a really important role at a company. You were working multiple hours at night, during the day, like really 24/7. You had a child at this time. You were trying to keep the child alive at the same time, like all the things. And he was like, Souzi, if we were to calculate the hours that you're working by your hourly rate, you'd be getting less than minimum wage. So tell us, like, how did that change your perspective?
So I am so blessed to have found my husband because we are such a good balance to one another. For me, look, compensation is important. I'm not saying it isn't, but man, what drives me is like the impact I make and the challenges and how I impact other people's lives and all of that. And so I dive right in. And this job, it was a global role. And I was supporting vice presidents in multiple countries, right? Here, Mozambique, Singapore. And so you deal with time differences, right? Yeah. Late. And so, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. taking calls from home for the Singapore leadership team. And then I'm working until 7 p.m. to make sure that the Mozambique team, when they get into the office, they have everything. And I had this was my second child, and I loved it. I absolutely loved that job. Like I just thrived on it. But I was working a lot and I didn't mind it except for the impact it had on my family.
Yes.
And so I would wake my son up after I got off the call. I would nurse him. He was probably 4 months old at the time. I would nurse him. I would get him dressed and then put him back to sleep. I'd get my daughter's stuff ready for daycare, put her clothes out, and then I'd leave. And so then my husband got up. He would just have to put the kids in the car, and that's how it happened. And then I would come home and I would get to spend maybe 30 minutes with my son because I would nurse him and then put him to bed. Like it was not, so it was actually right before I got the call from Southwestern Energy to come work for them. And I actually declined at the beginning. I was like, no, I'm good. I love my job where I'm at right now. I'm good. And so I told my husband about the role, and he was utterly baffled that he couldn't even understand. He's like, but what does it hurt if you just entertain it? You don't have to take it. It's not a commitment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but I just love my work. And so he entered, and he was like, he pulls out his calculator. He's like, if we made this, he's like, you're making below minimum wage. He's like, I know money isn't everything.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I was like, no, that can't be right.
Yeah.
He's like, well, and so we had that really tough conversation. He's like, I'm not going to make the decision for you. It's up to you, but I just would encourage you. He's like, I just want you to go somewhere where they truly value your worth in a monetary way.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
And so, that's actually what encouraged me to like listen to the offer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would have said no.
I would have said
never here today.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell us about when you actually made the decision to leave, because that must have been a tough choice.
It was a tough choice.
How was that? How was that? And then now that you've been through the acquisition, etc., do you think you made the right choice?
Yeah. So they did. Luckily, Southwestern Energy came back to me, and it was a role to lead kind of learning and development, which ever since I met my husband, I was like, this is my mecca. Like, this is what I want, right? And so to him, it was very logical. Like, it's the role you've always wanted. It's even closer to home. Mm-hmm. It's like hopefully going to pay you more money.
Yeah.
What is the, what's the holdup? He just didn't understand. And I was like, but I just love the people I work with. And that is important.
Yeah.
Right. And once I got that offer though, I was like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, I'm gone.
Like, I don't like you guys that much. I thought I loved it.
I was like, this is a hard decision. So I had I did when I talked to my director at the time, and he asked me the offer. Like, good for smart people in your lives, right? That were selfless.
Yeah.
He goes, Souzi, you have to say yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I thought, he was like, look, we want to keep you, but my God, like, it's going to take you
forever,
like X amount of years to make that kind of money here. I'm like, okay, well, this is my resignation.
Yeah. You're like, I'm out.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it was wonderful. My VPs understood. I remember one of the VPs in the business came to me and he said, hey, this is a loss for us, but I understand. And if it doesn't work out, like, I will always find a place for you in my organization. It was great.
Yeah.
It was
I love those managers that are like that. The first time I ever left the first company, the exact same thing happened, because it was like, they're going to give you a car, they're going to give you this. And I was like, can y'all match that? And they're like, no. We can give you 8%. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. And they're like, yeah, you should leave. I just love when people are truthful. So tell us now, Expand Energy.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
What have you learned through all of these transitions, and like, what have you been, and for those that are going through this, because there's so many acquisitions right now, like, what do you tell your employees? Like, what's something for them to like settle their mind, or at least, or maybe they need to envision what they want to do next, because this brings opportunity. What's your advice coming from that HR perspective?
So I will say, in every moment where I was scared in my career, it ended up working out even better than I would have ever imagined.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was scared taking the job at Southwestern Energy. I got there and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. And I stuck it out. And that I have learned through everything that I've experienced, that when I am uncomfortable, that is what yielded the exponential growth. And so when I'm comfortable, that means I end up getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, I'm along for the ride, but I'm not really there. And so I actually try to put myself in more uncomfortable situations. And change is highly uncomfortable for people. Mm-hmm. Uncertainty is highly uncomfortable. And it should be. Our brains are not wired to deal with uncertainty for extended periods of time, right? Mm-hmm. And in the absence of clarity and uncertainty, your mind makes up stories. Because it has to feel better, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're like, you see something, you're like, oh, I bet that meant this. And then you talk to other people and they're going through the same struggle and they have their own stories. So then the stories grow. And it gets out of control. And I know because I have done that, and it's very easy for me to get to that place. And so I've learned to control that, right? And be like, this is just me making stuff up. I actually don't know the truth. What do I need to validate, right?
Yeah.
And I write my questions down, and then I lead from a place of curiosity, right?
Versus
Instead of a place of
fear.
assumption and fear.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I encourage with employees. Like, tell me when we talk, tell me what you're struggling with. And they'll, I'm not going to have a job at the end of this. Well, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Do you not have an offer? Do you have a transition letter? Do you have and they're like, well, no, here's what I noticed. I'm like, okay, well, that could be that leader was just talking to this other person because they have actual business, right? So I try to bring a different perspective, right? As an outside view. So I encourage people to do the same. Like, surround yourself with people who are not going to spiral along with you.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people that are kind of the voice of reason. That I'm not saying extremely positive, because that can get annoying.
Yes.
But people who are just logical, right? Yeah. That just see things sometimes for what they are and say and tell you.
And can still challenge what you're thinking.
Exactly. But that's also very difficult for most of us. Like, we want to be validated in our thinking, right?
Yeah. Like, agree with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Oh my God. Suzi, that's such great advice. Like, really, just in life in general, because you do that in your mind. You make up all these stories
of why it's not going to work out.
And then
but not why it will.
Yes. And then you go and find the posse that agrees with you. And then y'all are all just like doing it together.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like very important. That's very good advice. And I think that those listening that are going through something like that, that's probably they're probably all seeing like an aha moment right now. They're like, oh yeah, I am doing that, So
it's hard to see, Jamie. Like, when you're in the thick of it, I understand, because I like to share with people to learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is such a learning and development term, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps us understand all of this and what people are going through. Basic needs it's like a pyramid. Imagine a pyramid, right? Basic needs are safety, security, food, shelter. Mm-hmm. When in the situation of M&A activity or reductions in force, all of that
gets questioned, threatened. Yeah.
And when people's basic needs are threatened, they can't achieve the self-fulfilling higher level, things that they're normally capable of, right? I mean, think about in the midst of COVID. Mm-hmm. People struggled. Well, why? Because our basic needs of security for our family and our health and all, like, it was severely threatened for a long extended period of time. And that's why that's what we got stuck in, right? And then you watch the news and it just got worse and worse and worse. So I like to always think about that. I like to stop and think, okay, where is this emotion from another person coming from? Mm-hmm. What's their perspective like that? I think empathy is really, really critical in moments like that. Mm-hmm. And it's important for people to feel heard, but also hear truth, right? Mm-hmm. In a very gentle way. Mm-hmm. And it's up to the person, right? To take that or not. Like, there are some people who don't come and talk to me again, right? Because I'm sad by that, but I also understand, right? That's not what they needed in that moment. Mm-hmm. And that's who I am. And so that's okay. It's okay.
Suzi, I love your story. I mean, I'm so happy that you're able to join us today and share not just like where you came from and how you overcame it, but also your personal journey in HR. And I love how you always say, like, it comes from pain. Because there's so many things that we want to succeed in life, and a lot of it comes from a place of pain, or comes from a place of just wanting to achieve something, to prove something to someone, and you think that will fulfill that need, and I think that you're doing a great work, and I know you are, because everybody loves you. Everybody loves you.
Oh, that's so kind.
So, if you want to find Suzi, she is on LinkedIn, and she is incredible. So please, do look her up, do add her, and. What's next for you, Suzi?
We're working on culture, right? As a new organization who closed in October, and we are about to launch some really incredible leadership development programs. Because that is fulfilling to me, because that's my life's work. Like, to impact people and help them feel fulfilled in their day-to-day while that helps them in their career, there's a ripple effect, because when you're miserable every day, you go home and you're miserable to the people around you.
Yes.
But when you're happy and you're fulfilled, and yes, it can be hard, that you go home and people feel that at home, your kids, your spouse, your siblings, your parents. That's what I want to do. And that's what I'm doing.
I love that.
So
I'm so happy to hear that, Souzi. And thank you for listening in on this amazing podcast with Souzi. And please keep us updated. Leave us comments. Write us, flippingthebarrel@gmail.com. You can find us everywhere on Flipping the Barrel, LinkedIn, Flipping the Barrel at .com on the web.
Instagram, all of it.
All of it. So we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you, guys.